Hello and welcome. This is another episode of Make It Happen, a podcast by Wahido Marata. Welcome to Make It Happen. I'm Wahido Marata, a certified life coach committed to helping entrepreneurs excel in life through mindset acceleration. In each episode, we'll explore a topic related to mindset and share tips and tools that can help you rebrand, revive, and realize your fullest potential. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Make It Happen. These episodes are about speaking to people who, like you and I, are like-minded and really focused on the work of self-development and looking to bring value to other people's lives in terms of coaching, in terms of meditation, in terms of yoga, and anything else that enriches the mind and the soul. And today we have Denise Michelle. Hi Denise, how are you today?
Hi Wahido, I am wonderful. I am so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Denise lives to inspire and dream. You have had such an amazing story, and I read thoroughly your website and your blog posts as well. And I really have a lot of questions, but I just wanted to introduce Denise to everyone that doesn't know her by saying that she's a practicing yogini of 20 years, Reiki healer, bodyworker, former studio owner, life mastery and spiritual coach, certified by the Life Mastery Institute for Transformational Coaching, co-founder of Ceremony Yoga online series and creator of sustainable skincare line Glow, Give, Love, Organics. She dedicated her deep connection with spirit and educating in self-empowerment to guide her gifts in yoga, meditation, and coaching with the world. In her own path to healing, which I'm really interested to start off with that, she has learned that living a yogic life is ultimate practice of self-love, the place where dreams come alive and transformation is made. Could you please let us know a little bit more about yourself, your background, and what took you to be here today, face to face and ears to ears with our listeners today?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Wahido. Honestly, this started in the womb. For me, this started in the womb. I was born with a mental illness called borderline personality disorder, which I wouldn't even discover until I was 26 years old. So borderline is a pretty intense disease. I'll call it a disease that doesn't really allow you to regulate your emotions. You don't really have a normal understanding of what happiness or sadness or anger or how to communicate your feelings. You have a very distorted idea of relationships and how you view yourself in the world. It's a very complicated illness, and I would say that in the criteria, if you look at the criteria, there are 9 different areas that doctors will typically look at. There are 256 different combinations of this illness. So you can imagine, to even think about unwinding it to a point where you're recovered, it's challenging. It's challenging, needless to say. So I would say that that's where it started for me. It started for me with growing up with wanting to learn about love. And when we're children, children have this idea, people ask, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be, I want to be a veterinarian. I want to be a lawyer, whatever. But when people would ask me, I would just kind of think to myself, I'd be like, well, I just want to be loved. I just want to feel love. And that would ultimately be my goal in life, is to learn about what love is, which now I finally figured it out. And love is here with the self. It's self-love. So I would say I would say that in this place of trying to learn about myself and figure myself out, many times, I mean, it really took me to a place of spiraling into darkness and not knowing how to understand myself, not knowing how to understand other people. And it actually caused me to be in depression from a very young age. From about 13 years old is when I had my first thoughts of suicide. And that would live with me for most of my life. It would, whether or not it would release and then it would come back. But, this is why I do the work that I do now, because I get it. I understand why people suffer. I understand how powerful the mind is. And, we can really choose our lives. And all it really takes is making a decision. Is making a decision, because our minds are the most powerful and also the most challenging thing to master.
Yes.
So, in a nutshell,
Yes, I mean, I'm fascinated by this condition.
That's what led me here.
Yes. I hear you. And the thing is, I'm really fascinated about everything that you said so far, and by reading a little bit about the condition that you speak of, because for many of our listeners, and including myself, it's not easy to understand really the complexity of such a condition. So in terms of how you dealt with yourself, or how you actually interpreted what was happening inside of you, could you try to, even if possible, explain a little bit more about that kind of struggle? I mean, most people say, okay, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, and those kind of emotions are easy to understand, but perhaps in your case were not so easy to understand. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no. So I would, your 20s are probably the most challenging when you are dealing with something like borderline, because you're in a place where you're trying to really figure out who you are. And I, as a teenager, I had already started, some bad habits that were already starting to spiral me. I mean, whether it was smoking or, I had great friends, but, and they were very open-minded, but it was, I was promiscuous. I wanted love. And that's all I knew is I wanted love. And I wanted to feel completed by someone. And when I reached my 20s and my behaviors got much worse, and the deeper into my relationships I got, I would start lashing out on a greater level. And what that would really turn into, it's not like I would just lash out at my boyfriend because I was in a bad mood and I was hangry. It was more of, I would go into a place where I would become almost like a beast. I would either put him down, or I would have what you would call a crisis, where if I got so overwhelmed with my emotions, I would end up on the floor, unable to move, uncontrollably crying, and yet at the same time doing things to get out of my body. I didn't want to, the pain was so deep that I would bang my head on the floor or walls. I would try to break my skull open. I would punch myself and hit myself. I hated being in this body so much. And when I would look in the mirror, it was just pure disgust. I couldn't even look at her in the face. And I couldn't understand why someone would love me, because I had this living inside of me. Yet there was this other side of me that was sweet, and that loved life and loved to explore. And when my boyfriend, when I would first meet my boyfriends, they would just be fascinated, because they'd be like, gosh, like seeing the world through your eyes is incredible. But then the other side of me would come out. And I was never able to get a hold of that other side of me. And it was, when I was 23, after an episode with my first real love, that's when I decided to start seeking help for this. But the thing is that the doctors were treating me for depression, and they were treating me for anxiety and sexual abuse from when I was a child. But I didn't even know what borderline was until I was 26, when I found it for myself and ended up diagnosing myself.
Oh, really?
And then
the doctors were not able to diagnose it?
No, because, and that's the thing with borderline, is that they get misdiagnosed a lot. For bipolar disorder. I mean, some people, you can have bipolar disorder and borderline. You can have a combination of bipolar. Yeah. I know, it's like ridiculous. Bipolar, anorexia, depression, anxiety, and borderline, it's so that's why it was so complicated for anybody to like really figure this out. But all I could really know, like when I found out when I was 26 years old, was through an incident through another boyfriend and his brother. And his brother had said to me, Denise, you're emotionally unstable. Like, you need help. And I sat with that, and I decided, at this point, the internet was starting to really make its way. This is what, 2005, 2006. And I looked it up on the internet, emotional instability. And then all of a sudden it just pops up in black and white, like, borderline. And I just read all the different things, and I was like, oh my God, there's a name for this. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So of course that was like a breath of fresh air. But then where do you begin, right? It's like, now I know what's wrong, but then who's going to help me? Because I don't know how to deal with this. Mm-hmm. This seems pretty complicated, So then it became me searching for a doctor who specialized in this.
Mm-hmm. So then you actually were able to receive like medical support, and I myself right now, knowing a bit more about your past and about your life, know that you are a lot into different sorts of alternative approaches to healing. Did they actually use something similar, or they went into, some sort of more like a harsh way of looking and treating what they perceived as what was happening with you?
Right. That's a great question, Wahido. So this particular doctor, he was a therapist, and he specialized in BPD. So it was more of cognitive behavior therapy. So I would go in and I would talk to him, and the only difference between that and going into treatment when I was 28 was that it was more of talk therapy. So when I actually went into treatment, which was called dialectical behavior therapy, and it was created for people with borderline, and it is a Zen approach to cognitive behavior therapy.
Wow.
Yeah, so it actually teaches you how to create skills and coping mechanisms for life, for when your emotions come up. So you start to pay attention to how these things happen. So if you can kind of imagine it like an onion, and then you start peeling away at the layers, and then within that onion are onions, and you really start to learn how to navigate what is happening inside of you. Now, for me, I was in treatment for 9 months. So, and that's what saved my life, because I was 28 years old. I was ready to kill myself, and I was very calm about it. And I realized that I had a choice, that at some point in the planning of my death, which I had 24 hours, that there had to be a way. And I heard a whisper, and I know now that was spirit talking to me, saying, "Hey, you've got options. You don't have to die." So, and that's when I went into short-term disability. I left my job at the time, which was in commercial property management, and I sought help right away. And then it took a little while. I looked at different places around the country. Where am I going to go? Do I go inpatient treatment? Do I do outpatient treatment? And ultimately I ended up in outpatient treatment here in Los Angeles, where I was in therapy for 10 hours a week. And that was a really tough time in my life. for sure, for sure.
But I would just like to point something really, really important, that you were able to actually see that there was an option. And, you know, if we think about people, you know, big people like not Tony Robbins, what was his name? The actor that committed suicide. So, you know.
Which one?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, yeah. So, I understand why he did it, yeah.
So the thing is, some people don't see that they have an option. And, you know, this is an extreme case, of course. But in more light cases, even in more light cases, people cannot see an option. So can you explain or kind of go into the nitty-gritty of what is that decision that really tells you, or that whisper that you really listen to and say, look, I'm going to take action, I'm going to execute on this, and from now on, this is going to be like this?
Yeah, well, Spirit really just told me, because when I would have these crises, I would be out of body. I would literally like float out of my body and see myself on the ground, and I could hear Spirit talking to me saying, you know how to get out of this. You know what to do. You're stronger than this. And but it was like, it would always take a while until I was completely emotionally and physically depleted for Spirit to come back into my body, and I would actually take that step. So going in, having that, making that decision, I just heard that there's something on the other side. There's something on the other side, and you can get there, and there's a way. So that gave me just that little bit of hope that I didn't have to live in the darkness for the rest of my life. That there was someone or something out there that could help me. That I was supposed to even do something wonderful and great with my life. And I knew at that point, I mean, at 27 is when I actually had the thought of becoming a yoga teacher. So I knew at that point that my experiences were meant to help people in some way. I didn't know how yet.
Exactly. That's so inspiring. And you know, sometimes, not always, but most of the time, I would say, those deep, like dark experiences, sort of speaking, that really bring us to the depth of negativity and depression and anxiety and really despair, really bring us to a space where, okay, this is an option, and I'm going to follow through. So can you explain then how that made the Reiki and the yoga flourish in your life and really become sort of the focus of your life, which is so beautiful?
Thank you. So while I was in treatment, I had the bright idea. I wanted to become a yoga teacher, but I was thinking, oh, who would want to learn from me? I have a mental illness. I'm all messed up, like, a woman in therapy who can barely, take care of herself. And yet I had this burning desire to become a teacher. And it really took Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga opened me up singing and dancing and chanting. And I went to an event one night, and that gave me the courage to sign up for yoga teacher training. And then I went through yoga teacher training that summer when I was 29. This is the summer I was 29. And I had just finished treatment, and it was so, it's funny because when people are usually in teacher training, they're laughing and they're having a great time and they're doing something that they love. But I was crying all the time. It's the only thing that I'd ever wanted for myself. And it was like, if I failed at this, then I had nothing. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. And then I eventually became, I eventually did graduate. I eventually started teaching. And 10 months later, I was given the opportunity to do yoga in the workplace, which ultimately led me to owning my own yoga studio 10 months after I graduated from teacher training. So Spirit just throws me in. And then I owned a yoga studio for 4.5 years. And I created a whole community, and it was a place for people to heal, because that was the intention, was become a teacher and teach yoga in a way that is therapy for people without them necessarily realizing it. So every teacher that I hired, they were all healers. And, during the course of all of this, it was healing me because it gave me purpose. I had to show up for these people every single day. And so as much as I wanted to fall back into my old behaviors and thoughts and all this stuff, I just knew that they were the reason why I was getting up every day. And for the first time in my life, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. There's something more. And then eventually I went into massage therapy school and became a body worker. And Reiki didn't come till later, till actually after I closed the yoga studio. But I really started exploring other avenues after I got into a surf accident about 5 years ago, which split my face open. Because I was really in a place where I didn't want to own the studio anymore, and I didn't know what to do next. I wasn't growing, and I just wanted to go surf the world for a year. But I know, right, of all things, and Spirit said, no, I don't think so. I'm gonna wake you up now, and she did. And that's actually the last 5 years is really where the bulk of my healing came. And that's how I found God, shaman work and Reiki, and working with all the alternative methods to healing that insurance doesn't pay for. I guess you can say, yeah.
Exactly, and it's very interesting what you said about all the instructors that you would hire would, in a way or another, be healers as well. And looking at shamanism, for instance, that you mentioned, the thing is, I truly believe that no one can actually heal others when they didn't heal themselves, and it's often termed as the wounded healer.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting to actually work with people in that way, where we have been through so much, healed ourselves. Of course, there's always so much to heal, and there's always the right time to heal certain things, but that we really were able to face so much that we are able to actually pass that on and help others with that work.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me because that is true, and people, and I would tell people, because they're like, oh, you're a healer, and I said, look, here, I'm not here to wave a magic wand and heal you. I said, you have to heal yourself. I said, but I'm here to guide you through it. And that's really what a healer is. And so, people have this misconception of what a healer is. Some people who are healers, they don't even like using the term I'm a healer, because it gets misconnotated so much. We're miracle workers in some way, shape, or form, but the only people who can take their pain away is themselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The power is within us.
Exactly. People are always waiting for miracles, but they have to make it happen. This is why I actually call this podcast Make It Happen, because I really believe that in a way or another, we need to be the vehicles to make it happen. The energy is there. We just need to put it out and make it happen.
Put it out. We do. It's true. We can't just, and I've realized that, that you can't just lie in bed and not get out of bed and just wait for something to happen, because it's not going to unless you make it happen.
Exactly.
We have to take action.
Exactly. And so you took action into, taking all these courses as well as coaching. And I'm just interested how that kind of mixed with everything else and manifested in your life. As a life coach, I'm really interested, because it's my passion, basically.
Well, yeah, and I totally get that. So last year, I had gotten back into body work because yoga was no longer paying the bills in the way that I wanted it to, and so I felt called to go back into body work, and I ended up creating something called Somatic Body Alchemy, and that instead of just doing massage on people, I said, well, what if I took all of the tools that I've learned over the years and I just created something out of it? And of course, I have a whole history of a therapeutic background. I mean, I was a therapy patient for 10 years, so I know a little bit about it. So I started counseling my clients before they would get onto the table, because your issues live in your tissues. And I know, right? How cute is that? And it was fascinating, Wahido, what started to happen with people. And most of my clients were men. And these are like high-powered men who were not used to tapping into their heart. And I have a gift at opening people's hearts. So these men were having breakthroughs on my table. And I would be using a combination of, after I would do the counsel with them and they would tell me what's going on in their lives, I would use a combination of massage techniques, essential oils, sound healing, breath work. And so I'm opening up all these different channels within them, and they're getting epiphanies. Some men are crying on my table and they're like, what is happening to me? And I would explain to them, because I was their reflection, right? I would show them themselves. This is love. This is really who you are. And that is actually what led me into coaching, because the more I was doing the body work, I mean, it was great and fine for a few months, but like my body wasn't in a place where it could sustain that kind of physical activity. And I said, well, what part of this is really driving me? And my friend, who's a coach, she said to me, she's like, Denise, what? She's like, why don't you just call yourself what you are? You're a coach. And I'm like, no, like, I mean, kind of, I didn't want to admit that to myself. And then I ended up going into Vipassana meditation, which is 10 days silent. And I wanted to go really deep, because the thing is that, again, I got to a place where I was stuck and I went into another depression. And I was like, why am I continuing to get depressed? Like, I'm accomplishing things in my life. I'm showing myself that I can do it. I'm making money. I'm creating. I'm like, what is it? What is going on? I don't understand all of this. And so Vipassana really helped to see where the root of these cause issues were. And when I came home, I went into a very deep depression, the deepest I've ever been in my life. And it was just like, it floored me. And then I got the flu, and this flu was like killing people. And then I had 102 temperature, and I pushed everybody out of my life, and I couldn't even help myself to the bathroom, much less to the market. And I lied in bed and I was crying, and I was like, what is this? This is not my life. How did this happen? I have no partner in my life. I have no friends and no family. I've pushed everybody out. This was my fault. I did this to myself. And that was the first time I really took responsibility for what was happening in my life. And I told Spirit, I said, either you take me home and you kill me, or you show me the way, because I don't know what the F to do. And 2 weeks later, I was led to my mentor. And that's how I found coaching.
Amazing, really amazing. Yeah. And with coaching and with all the tools that you have, tell us a bit about what are you actually doing right now, meaning if you have programs, classes, or what kind of issues you take from the tissues, or how do you work that out? And, and please let us know.
Yes, absolutely. So virtually, I help people build their dreams. I help people build their dreams. You have a dream? You have something inside of you that you want to accomplish in your life, but something is saying, no, you can't. Something is saying it's impossible. I show you the way. And I do it in a way that's super heart-centered. And what I have found is that my why is because I believe that people deserve to know what love really is. I believe that they deserve to know what self-acceptance and self-forgiveness and self-compassion is. I believe that they must and can learn to see the reflection in the mirror and see that person as their best friend and be able to share that person authentically with the world around them, because I believe in love, and love heals. It's the only thing that heals, and love is real. And everything that we're doing, so what I've created is called Bridge the Love. It's learning how to bridge the love back to yourself. Bridge the love from yourself to another person. Bridge the love from the heavens above to the earth below. That this is the one thing that we strive for as human beings. It's love. But how do we get there? And it must start with the self. It must start with us. So, when I work with people, I use a proven system of transformation. There's a magic formula, yes. Does it take some work? Absolutely, because if it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Some is underestimating it now.
Yes, right? Just a little bit, because you're transforming your life. But is it possible? Yes. And I love to have fun. So I make the time with my clients. This is about us connecting, and this is about people learning that they can be greater, fuller, freer, more expanded versions of themselves. And there is a way to do it. And every step of the way, we're going to be met with fear, and we're going to be met with our paradigms. But that's the joy of it, right? The joy is the journey of who we become along the way. Do we want the dream? And do we want the thing to happen? Absolutely. But getting there and seeing yourself unfold and unravel and go through all the glory and the pains and the depth of life, that is the essence. That is the essence. And this is what I offer people, is like, hey, there's this whole world over here. Come on, let's go play. There's this whole community. And we're all here to just love each other. And I know that sounds like so hippy dippy to some people, but I'm like, but it's true. I promise that there is a rainbow on the other side, that you can have it. And you deserve it, of all things. You're worth it. You're worthy of this. Your dream is worthy of your time and your energy.
Wow. That's about Bridge the Love. And that's your website, bridgethelove.com, right?
Yes.
And, if people want to find out more about you, or find you online, or find you on social media, what should they look for?
Yes, so they can look me up. So on Instagram, I'm under Denise Michelle Gypsy Yogini, GYPSEA _Yogini, bridgethelove.com. And you can also find me on Facebook as Denise Michelle. But I'm really here to serve. That is my first and foremost priority. And so I gift people complimentary deep dive sessions with me, which last anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, and I send them a questionnaire, and we really just dive into where your longings and discontents are, and then we dive into your dreams, and I show you that there is a way. Because you know what? Living in a cycle of life, if we're just living in a cycle and we're just going around and around and around, what's the point? There's so much life to be experienced here. And why not? Why not take a chance to see how much you can do in life, right? How many things you can learn to master, how many places you can visit in the world. The world is fascinating, but I don't know about you, but I personally don't think that we're meant to just be born, pay bills, and die. Right? Well, that doesn't sound like very much fun to me.
Not to me. Definitely. Denise, was a tremendous pleasure. I really felt so inspired by not only I'm even finding it difficult to believe that you don't have yet a book, sort of an autobiography.
It's coming.
Speaking about all the revelations, and also speaking about your healing process, because everyone goes through their healing processes, but some, I think, have it in a more sort of deeper, or kind of I don't know. I think deeper is the right word. And so I truly believe that you have a lot to share with people. and
Thank
either
you.
through audiobooks or even through ebooks.
It's coming. It's coming.
She's something
I mean,
to look into.
right now I have a YouTube channel that I do talk about this work, and that's under Denise Michelle as well, and you can find me there. But yes, the book is coming. It has started. Let's put it that way. And I'm working on creating more content, more articles that are published. I have one already out on Elephant Journal that I wrote a few years ago on borderline and yoga. And how that really has an effect. And so writing is a great tool for me, and I write all the time on Instagram as well. So lots of lessons to be learned. But yes, the book is definitely coming. I know I've heard it several times. The book, the TED Talk, all of that is coming, which I'm very, very thrilled about. And we'll see what this next year brings, because it's going to be a big year. You can feel that.
Denise, before we finish, the thing that I would really like, already you have shared so much and shared so much inspiration. I just wanted to ask if you could perhaps give a tip to some of our listeners on how, or one of the first steps that they can do, perhaps even today, on how to reach their dreams.
Yes. Great question. Okay, so find gratitude. Gratitude. The abundance of life comes from gratitude. If you don't know what to be grateful for, look around you. The fact that you woke up today, that your eyes opened, that was a gift. We're not promised tomorrow, and we're not promised another breath. So when we start looking at life in the eyes of gratitude, and even if you have a hard time thinking about what you're grateful for, just write it down. Just look around at your home. Look around at what you do have and put it in front of you. I am grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful. And doing enough of that will shift your vibration. And it will show you that there is more. There's something more.
Denise, was a utmost pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us in Make It Happen podcast. And
thank you, Wahido.
I wish you an amazing day and an amazing life. And may you continue bringing inspiration. And I really want to acknowledge you for all you've been through, and the amazing energy that came through. And you are really one of the wounded healers that are really doing an amazing work in the world. And I really commend you for all that you've been doing and continue doing throughout America and worldwide. Thank you so much.
Oh gosh, thank you, Wahido. It's such a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. This was another episode of Make It Happen. You can watch it throughout all the different podcast platforms, such as iTunes and the Google apps and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, and see you next time in another episode of Make It Happen with Wahido. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I would like to invite you to share the podcast with friends and family, individuals seeking more clarity about themselves and their actions. And now it's time to make it happen. See you next time.